Back in the forest, Haruka continues his journey out of the woods to escort the girls to the nearest town. But on their way they encounter a massive level 11 orc. Haruka tells the girls to stand back and watch how he fights so that they can learn as well. With that, Haruka charges forward with his tiny stick, while the orc swings its massive club down to smash him. To its surprise, Haruka suddenly vanishes from right in front of him. In reality, Haruka is hiding behind a tree and laughing at how slow the orc is. Haruka remembers the nerds telling him that orcs have high resistance to physical attacks and can only be defeated by using magic. Haruka scrolls through his status screen to find good magic to use against the orc, and Haruka notices that he has something called element magic. Haruka notes that he learned the wind, water, and earth elements by using the packing magic in various ways, like vacuum cleaning and plowing the ground, and Haruka becomes happy at how smart he is. Just then the orc breaks the tree Haruka is hiding behind and starts attacking him. Haruka jumps back and tries to dodge everything, and then gets behind the orc and strikes it with his tiny stick. However, to everyone's surprise, the orc takes a lot of damage and ends up hugging the ground with its last breath. Haruka thinks about how orcs are supposed to have high physical defense, and the girls look at him with a suspicious face as well. Haruka says that he will take the next one down using magic, just like how the nerds told him to. The next time they come across an orc, Haruka creates a fireball in his hand and gently throws it at the orc's head. This makes orc explode on the spot, and Haruka one-shots another orc. Haruka wonders what's happening, and the girls complain because there is no way they can learn anything when Haruka keeps one-shotting monsters. Later that night they all camp outside and enjoy some roasted mushrooms, while Haruka creates a trap using earth magic. For everyone's safety, Haruka thinks about how his tent has monster repellent and is equipped with presence detection magic as well, so the girls should be safe for the night. Haruka starts planning their route for the next day, so he uses his map skills, which evolved from his appraisal and contact lens skills. Haruka looks at it and thinks that they should follow along the river, but then he suddenly detects someone's presence. Haruka notices that some humans walking towards them, and Haruka worries that they might be delinquents. However, to his relief, it turns out to just be the jocks. Meanwhile, the class rep notices Haruka talking to them and decides to listen to their talk. Haruka asks the jocks what they're doing there and wonders if they were stalkers trying to check up on the girls while they were sleeping. Haruka asked them if they were also creeps while being muscleheads, but they cried out and said that they were not. One of them says that they are not there for the girls, they are there for him. Haruka teases them by asking if they like boys, but they say they are not that way. After that, Haruka asked them why they were hiding from the girls, and they replied that it was because they couldn't trust anyone anymore. They explained that there is a skill that is much more dangerous than the puppetry and mesmerize skill. Haruka thinks that they must be talking about the hijack skill, which allows the user to steal other skills and abilities. The jocks say that the delinquents didn't say anything about the hijack skill, so that must mean they don't have it. However, that means that someone else has it, so they must be cautious of everyone. After hearing this, Haruka says that they must be stupid, because they didn't consider the possibility that he might have that skill. However, they start smiling, and say that if that were the case, then they would be really happy, because they know that he is not a bad guy. Then they ask Haruka if he actually has it or not, and Haruka tells him that he doesn't have hijack, but he has the domination skill, which sounds even worse. They tell him that as long as Haruka has all the weird skills, they won't have to worry, because Haruka will most likely just sit alone somewhere without harming anyone. After that, they say that they will keep an eye out for the delinquents in the forest, and they are just looking to warn Haruka about the hijack skill, so he can stay safe. Then they ask him to apologize to the girls on their behalf for not standing up to the delinquents earlier, and they walk away. Haruka sees them off by telling them to consult with the goblins if they are in trouble next time, because they are both idiots, so they will get along well for sure. The next morning, Haruka tells everyone to prepare their equipment, and then they walk to the forest to look for some herbs before they leave. The class rep tells Haruka that she knows about his talk with the jocks last night, and she apologizes to him. Haruka realizes that it is about the hijack skill, and Haruka says that he knows that she is the one who has it. The class rep says that she asked the nerds to keep it a secret, but Haruka says that it was pretty obvious, but the jocks are too dumb to realize that. Haruka tells class rep not to worry about it, because they all trust her with that skill. That is why the nerds didn't steal it from her, like they did with the delinquents. This makes the class rep really happy, and she starts tearing up. Haruka points out that she has been crying a lot since coming to this world, but the class rep says that it is because of him. Haruka freaks out and says that it's a false accusation, and runs away. However, when Haruka leaves, the class rep tells herself that it is because Haruka makes her so happy. After that, they continue their journey, and Haruka decides to sell some fresh fruit juice on the way to cheer everyone up. One girl says that she doesn't have any money, but would be interested in paying another way. However, the class rep scolds Haruka for being a pervert, and he stops selling the juices, which makes the other girls weep about not getting any. They continue walking through the forest until Haruka spots the river. Haruka tells the class rep that it should be safe to camp out here for the night, and says that he will go on ahead to do some scouting as Haruka dashes away. While running, Haruka enhances his physical strength and uses weight magic to make himself lighter. Haruka gets a good view of the forest from above, but then Haruka realizes that he doesn't have a way to land safely. So Haruka falls to the ground. Then Haruka goes back to the camp and gets scolded by the class rep for being reckless. Haruka is a clever guy, so he tries to make up for it by saying that he picked up some fresh fruits to make more juice. The next day they get back to treading their way out of the forest and encounter a bunch of new things on their way. They find a lost girl from their group and enjoy some time playing in the river and even get chased by a horde of orcs. However, in the end, they manage to get out of the forest, which made everyone excited. Haruka notes that his vision is covered by the hills in the area, and he notices a new airwalk skill in his status screen. Haruka uses it to fly up to get a better view of their surroundings, and notices a party of people from this world getting attacked by a pack of monsters. Haruka gets down and tells the class rep everything. Being the good leader that she is, she freaks out and says that they should help them. However, Haruka warns that there is no guarantee that the people are actually good. There is no way to know if they will hurt them once they save them from the monsters. Haruka suggests they continue walking forward, but the class rep says that she will fight back if they try to hurt her classmates. Class rep wants to save them, so she looks at Haruka with baby eyes. Because of this, Haruka says that he will go there on his own. They are too far away, and the others won't be able to make it, even if they run at full speed. Then Haruka uses physical enhancement and weight magic again, and then Haruka casts wind magic to fly himself into the air. Then Haruka continues flying towards the people using his airwalk skill. However, Haruka notices the class rep hanging from his cloak, and Haruka asks her what the class rep is doing. Class rep says that she got caught up in the wind magic and tells them to look in front of him as they are about to crash. Unfortunately, Haruka says that he doesn't know how to apply brakes. They both crash down on the monsters near the people's party and end up saving them in the process. Haruka gets up, and the party leader introduces himself as Ofter alongside his partner Gatek. They thank him for saving them and explain that merchants were being attacked by monsters on this route. Because of that, they decided to pick up the quest from the Adventurers Guild, hoping that they would be able to make some money. However, if the fight had continued, they wouldn't be alive right now. After that, they pack their stuff, and Haruka waits for the other girls to catch up to them. While waiting, he cooks up some of his mushrooms and shares them with the others. They thank him for it and reveal that the mushrooms are actually quite valuable. The mushrooms restore their strength, and Haruka becomes jealous of the old dudes at the party for getting the chance to go on adventures with such hotties. Just then, the class rep comes back to her senses and stops Haruka from turning into a villain. The other girls eventually catch up, and they become excited to see real-life elves. The party show them the way to a town called Omui, and the girls start running towards it excitedly, like some kids. On the other hand, we see the delinquents grinding up some levels in the forest. They say that it is about time they take revenge from the girls and have their way with them. However, the nerd that they kidnapped suggests that they first get their puppetry and mesmerize skills unsealed. The delinquents all agree, and they decide to hunt the nerds group first. At the same time, the jocks look at them from behind some trees and become worried about them making their move. All the girls excitedly run through the city streets while appreciating all the amazing stuff this city has to offer, but class rep reminds them that they don't have any money and have a ton of stuff to do. Then class rep runs off to round all the girls, and Haruka smiles because now that he has successfully helped everyone make it to the city, they shouldn't need him anymore, which means he can return to his peaceful loner life. Class rep is having a hard time getting the girls to behave, so she asks Haruka to help her out a little. But Haruka is already relaxing in the shade since his job is done. Class rep gets upset, and while she understands that Haruka is relieved that they are finally in the city, still there is a lot of stuff they need to do. Class rep blows her whistle to get all the girls' attention, and once they're gathered, class rep tells the plan she came up with. First, they will all head over to the Adventure Guild and sell all the items they collected on their way here. And once they have done that, they will register with the guild and rent a room in an inn for the night. And while they are doing that, they can also ask if anyone has seen the nerds come through here recently. It's a good plan, but the popular girls are offended that class rep is treating the nerds like some unimportant side quest, so class rep apologizes. But Haruka makes fun of the popular girls for caring about the nerds so much. A little while later the group makes their way to the Adventurers Guild, and it's a lot more intimidating than Haruka had expected. Everyone inside is giving them dirty looks already, and Haruka doesn't want to head inside, but after tells him the guild master wants to meet with him. This sounds like bad news, so Haruka tells the class rep to get all the girls registered while he goes to see what the guild master wants. Haruka heads upstairs and all the people here look even scarier than the ones downstairs, so Haruka is put on edge. Haruka finds Gatek waiting at the end of the room, and Gatek leads Haruka into the guild master's office, where he comes face to face with the scary looking man. But it looks like Haruka was worried for nothing because the guild master just wanted to thank him for saving After and his party. After that is done, Haruka heads back downstairs and Haruka notices a counter, so he assumes that's where you go to sell magic stones and heads over to ask the attendant. The attendant confirms that he can sell his magic stones here, so Haruka gives her a bunch of stones from his bag. There is a lot more where that came from, but the attendant asks him to stop because Haruka has already dropped 2 days worth of overtime on her desk. So she just asks him to come back tomorrow, so she can finish appraisal all of these first. Haruka doesn't mind waiting, and all the girls are done registering as adventurers, so Haruka must hurry up and register as well. Haruka proudly walks into the registration room to get himself assessed, but once the assessment is done the guild worker tells Haruka that he is too weak to become an adventurer. The guild requires people to be at least level 10 before they can register to become adventurers, and even then, you have to be in a party to qualify. If Haruka wanted to register as a solo adventurer, he would have to be at least level 20, but he is only level 9 right now, and his loner skill prevents him from forming a party, so Haruka is going to be unemployed for a long time. Later that night, class rep leads everyone to the lodging that the guild prepared for them. But once they finally make it there, Haruka starts freaking out, because this place looks a lot like a love hotel, but it isn't. So everyone says goodnight to one another and heads to their separate room. The next morning they all get up to meet at the diner to get some breakfast, and class rep is excited to tell them that this town is supposedly really safe, so they are free to head into town and do whatever they want. The girls are happy, so they start making plans to go shopping later today, and since they can handle themselves from here on out. Haruka plans to head back into the woods once he gets paid for his crystals. Speaking of which, Haruka heads to the guild after breakfast to see if they are done appraising his magic stones, but when Haruka gets there, he receives sincere apologies because they don't have enough money on hand to pay him all at once. The guild master comes out as well to personally offer his apologies and asks Haruka if he would be willing to allow the guild to pay him in installments. Haruka says he is fine with it, and the guild master is thankful that he is so understanding, but in the meantime, he tells Haruka he can have the amount for the magic stones they have already appraised. There are 8 million Hellies in that bag, and from what Haruka and class rep have learned since arriving in Omui, the money here pretty much had the same value as money back on Earth. So Haruka just became rich. Haruka's payment is so high because he brought in more F-rank stones than the guild has ever seen, and he also defeated those wolves, so that contributed to the payout. Since Haruka just got a small fortune, he decides to go shopping before heading back into the forest. And Gatek says he knows a place that Haruka might want to visit. Haruka thinks Gatek is taking him to an adult establishment, but to his disappointment, Gatek is just leading him to a rundown weapon shop. This place collects specialty equipment from dungeons, and since Haruka is a bit of a special case, Gatek felt like this would be a good place for him to get his equipment. The place may look sketchy, but Gatek assures Haruka that the stuff here is really high quality. Haruka takes Gatek's word for it, but still Haruka wants to try some of the stuff before he buys anything, and the stuff may look weird, but the effects they provide are amazing, so Haruka spends all day looking through the stuff and buys as much of it as he can afford. Just then he notices a necklace that looks good. The only description his appraisal skill gives is that it fits 7. Come to think of it, Haruka got the same message when he tried to appraise his villager set, so Haruka decides to ask the shopkeeper if he knows what 7 is supposed to mean. The shopkeeper explains that in the case of the necklace can combine the effects of up to 7 items, and allows the wearer to use them all at once. That sounds really useful to Haruka, and if the effect also applies to his villager set, then that means he can stack even more effects onto his equipment. It's about to begin sorting through all the items for the best effects to combine, but just then, class rep shows up and starts yelling at him for staying out so late. Haruka realizes that he has been here for a while, but he still has a lot more stuff he wants to try out. However, as Haruka is holding one of the items, it suddenly starts reacting, and before he realizes it, all the items in front of him get combined into one. The shopkeeper gets angry because Haruka hasn't actually paid for anything yet, and all the stuff cost him well over 10 million to acquire. Haruka starts panicking because he doesn't have that much money, so Gatek pleads with the shopkeeper to accept Haruka's 8 million instead. The next day Haruka is sulking over the fact that he just wasted all his money, so now he is completely broke. Haruka would like to go outside and gather some more crystals, but people aren't allowed to leave town to hunt monsters unless they are registered as adventurers. Haruka tried to sneak out with some of the girls, but class rep caught him and started yelling at him some more, so Haruka has the perfect plan to sneak out without class rep spotting him. Haruka's villager cloak was combined with an invisibility cloak, so with this you should be able to make it out of the city unnoticed. Haruka sneakily walks past class rep and the other girls, and he feels bad for leaving them without saying anything, but class rep would definitely try to stop him if she found out. Haruka manages to successfully escape the lodging, and once he is outside, Haruka makes the mistake of taking off his invisibility cloak. As Haruka attempts to jump over the wall, he gets spotted by a couple of the girls that are outside, and they ask him where he is going, so Haruka freaks out and accidentally smashes his golden balls against the wall. Haruka falls back to the ground and yells at the girls for startling him like that, but they say they just want to know why Haruka was jumping over the wall. Haruka recognizes the girls as part of the athletic group, but one of them is missing, so Haruka uses his perception skill to locate her, and to his horror Haruka discovers that she is about to strip naked in the middle of the street. Haruka and the athletic girls all rush over to stop her, but even though they manage to get to her before she can completely undress, Haruka's escape plans have been ruined. The next day all the girls are heading out to complete a quest for the guild, and Haruka asks if they will let him join them, but class rep refuses because she doesn't trust him after he tried to ditch the group yesterday. Class rep assures him that they will be back in no time, and Haruka says he will wait, but as soon as class rep and the others have left, Haruka starts smiling because he has no intention of waiting for them. Haruka has learned from his last mistake, so he keeps on his cloak and waits until he is outside the city gates before taking it off. Haruka has officially made it out of the city, and nothing is stopping him from making it back to his house in the forest, but as Haruka is running, he notices a bunch of destroyed buildings over in the distance. Normally this would be a long side quest, but Haruka just wants to get back to his house, so he completely ignores it. Haruka also sees a horde of goblins, which would be a great source of experience if he took the time to slaughter them, but once again, Haruka just wants to head back to the forest. Now this time as Haruka is running, he notices a carriage being attacked by bandits, and this is pretty hard to ignore, especially since the people inside are asking for his help. But ultimately, Haruka decides to just ignore it and keep moving. However, as Haruka is trying to leave, the bandits attack him, so he tries to explain to them that he doesn't want to get involved. The bandits refuse to leave him alone, so Haruka is forced to take action and roasts them with a single fire spell. The staff Haruka is holding as a result of one of the items combination he got stuck with, and it turns out that it's pretty powerful. As the bandits get back up, Haruka once again tries to talk his way out of the fight, so he tells the bandits that they should just leave him alone if they know what's good for them. The bandits admit that his magic is powerful, but since they assume magic is the only thing Haruka is good at, they all decide to attack him in close quarters. However, Haruka is easily able to knock them down with one strike each. The bandits can't believe they're losing to a single kid, so they ask what Haruka's job is. Haruka says he is jobless, so they get shocked. The bandits decide to check Haruka's status, so they know what they are up against, but as soon as they see that Haruka is only level 9, they decide that they can beat him if they use their weapon skills, even though they have been losing so far. Weapon skills are only available from level 20, so Haruka doesn't have any, and from what he knows, weapon skills are really powerful, so Haruka is a little worried. The bandits begin using their weapon skills, but while it is certainly dangerous, they keep yelling out their attack before they use it, so Haruka is easily able to dodge until they all pass out from exhaustion. Just then Haruka notices a girl approaching him from behind, and this is the last thing he wants because this looks like an unskippable side quest. The girl's name is Marielle, and she is from a noble family. Marielle wants to thank Haruka for helping her, but now she thinks about it. Haruka tries to ignore her at first, so Marielle is not sure if she should be thanking him. Regardless of Haruka's initial intentions, Marielle still appreciates Haruka for helping her, and she has a favor to ask of him. Her father is the lord of a certain city, and Marielle was hoping Haruka would accompany her back to the city since she fears for her safety. Haruka doesn't want to at first, but Marielle mentions something about rewarding him for his help, so Haruka decides to go with her after all. Along the way, Marielle asks Haruka where he was coming from when he met her, so Haruka begins to tell about the crappy city just came from. Because the guild didn't have enough money to pay him, they refused to register him as an adventurer, and the city wouldn't even let him leave without a permit. Now Marielle realizes which city Haruka is talking about, and Marielle begins crying because she hadn't realized how little Haruka thought of the city her father runs. After seeing Marielle's reaction, Haruka realizes she is the daughter of the Lord of Omui, and that means this carriage is heading back there, so Haruka regrets agreeing to escort her. Meanwhile, back in the forest, the jocks and the delinquents are squaring up for a battle because the jocks refuse to let the delinquents do anything bad to the girls. And the delinquent leader has no problem with murdering the jocks if he has to, but as he raises his sword, he gets stabbed through the back. Both the jocks and the delinquents are shocked to see this, but as the rest of the delinquents try to avenge their friend, the first one to attack just gets stabbed as well. The last two decide to strike simultaneously for better odds of winning, but the unknown attacker can easily take them down as well. After seeing this, the jocks realize they are outmatched, so they attempt to run away, but the assailant is too quick for them to escape, so he appears in front of them and begins menacingly walking forward. Meanwhile, Haruka has just been dragged back to town by Marielle, but Haruka really doesn't want to come. Marielle starts crying, so he decides to go with her just to be nice. Once Haruka arrives at the Lord's house, Marielle leaves him alone for a minute, so Haruka takes a look around, and it certainly looks like a nice house, but that has nothing to do with Haruka, so Haruka immediately starts heading for the front door so he can leave. However, before Haruka leaves, Marielle gets back, and she is upset that Haruka is trying to leave because she specifically asked him to wait while she changes her clothes. Marielle tells him to just wait a little longer because she still has to do something to thank him, and Haruka doesn't want to, but since Marielle is so insistent, Haruka has no choice but to listen. Haruka may have been against staying here at first, but once Marielle shows him the feast she had prepared for him, Haruka completely changes his attitude. Marielle did this as her way of showing Haruka some appreciation, but she is starting to get annoyed because Haruka is ignoring her. While Haruka is stuffing his face with food, Marielle asks one of her maids to bring the rest of Haruka's reward, so a pouch of money is brought, and while Haruka acknowledges it, he doesn't seem all that excited. As a bonus, Marielle noticed that Haruka isn't registered with the city, so she went through the liberty of getting a custom ID card made for him which will grant him permission to leave and enter the city anytime he wants. That's a really cool gift, but Haruka stopped paying attention after he received the money, and Haruka is more focused on the dessert that was brought to him. The next day, class rep and the rest of the girls begin questioning Haruka about what happened last night. Haruka explains to them that he was just summoned to the local lord's mansion, and while class rep knows Haruka isn't lying, she doesn't understand why the local lord would want to see Haruka in the first place. Haruka chooses to keep his explanation vague, so they don't find out about how he met Marielle during his failed escape attempt. Eventually, the girls let it go and decide to go out on a mission. But before they leave, class rep reminds Haruka that he's not allowed to leave town. Haruka seems oddly compliant this time, but that's just because Haruka knows nothing is stopping him from leaving town once the girls leave. With his new ID, Haruka can finally get out of town without any hassle, but before Haruka goes, there are a few things he has to do first. Haruka uses his money to buy some new equipment, eats as much good food as possible, and then starts writing a note for the class rep to find so she won't get mad about him leaving. Haruka writes down that he is going back to the forest to check on the jocks, and while Haruka is just writing it as an excuse, he is worried about those muscleheads. Haruka heads outside, and after presenting his ID, Haruka is allowed to leave town, and this time he won't let himself get distracted by any annoying side quests. Before long, Haruka returns to the woods, and he is glad to see that everything is still the same as it was when he left it. Haruka can't wait to get back to his house, but while he is not paying attention, Orc sneaks up and attempts to smash his head in. Fortunately, Haruka's stats are way too high for something like that to work on him, so he just one-shots the Orc with his staff. Haruka finds it weird that an orc would appear around here since they are usually only found a lot deeper in the forest. And that is not the only strange thing he discovers because he finds a human blood trail nearby. Haruka knows the blood couldn't have come from the nerds since they are too strong to lose to anything in the forest, so he assumes it must have come from one of the jocks. Haruka begins tracking the blood trail until he eventually finds the jocks, all bloody and bruised, under a tree. At first, Haruka thinks they are dead, but once Haruka gets closer, he realizes they are still breathing, so Haruka dumps every healing potion he has on them until they eventually regain consciousness. They begin explaining everything to Haruka, and while Haruka had initially thought the jocks were attacked by the delinquents, Haruka is shocked to be told that all the delinquents are actually dead. Haruka asks if the nerds were targeted as well, but the jocks have no idea, although it doesn't seem likely since the nerds left the forest a long time ago. They can tell that Haruka intends to go after the person who did this, so they warn him that Tanaka is insanely strong now, so much so that they barely last a couple of seconds against him. Also, he stole all their overpowered weapons, so now Tanaka is even stronger than he was before. They think he must have been planning this whole thing from the moment the class got teleported here. And they don't know if they'll be able to stop him, but they know who his next target is going to be. Of all the students left alive, the most likely target is going to be Class Rep since she has the hijack skill. Haruka certainly thinks Tanaka may go after Class Rep for her hijack skill. But the only people who knew about the skill were Class Rep, the nerd, and Haruka, so Haruka wonders how the information got out. The jocks were only able to figure it out because Tanaka kept asking for Class Rep's location, and when they couldn't give him the information he wanted, Tanaka beat them up till they're barely alive. They didn't want to go looking for Class Rep since that would put her in danger, so they came to the area of Haruka's house in hopes that he would find them before they died. How strong Haruka is, they are sure they'll be able to win if they all fight together. But Haruka doesn't know if he really wants to get involved in a battle like this in the first place. Haruka specifically wanted to avoid side quests, but if Class Rep is being targeted, he has no choice but to put a stop to it. However, Haruka makes it clear to the jocks that this is a battle that he will be fighting alone. The jocks try to talk him out of it since going alone is insanely risky, but when they see the look in his eyes they realize Haruka is serious about it, so they agree to let him go alone. Haruka tells them they should just head to town in the meantime and meet up with the rest of the girls, and while they are there, they better apologize to Class Rep for leaving the group earlier. As the jocks leave, Haruka thinks to himself that it might be better to have them fight with him. But he can't risk having all of them fight at once, since if Tanaka manages to overpower them, there would be no one left to warn the girls. The safest option is for him to tackle this alone and to make sure he is ready for the battle when he eventually faces Tanaka. At the same time, back in the city, Class Rep is worried after realizing that Haruka has left the city. The other girls tell her there is nothing to be worried about since Haruka will definitely come back. Back in the forest, Haruka is thinking over his plan against Tanaka because the jocks told him that Tanaka has incredibly powerful weapon skills. Even the weapon skills of bandits are frightening, but something Haruka learned after dealing with them is that a weapon skill can't be cancelled after it is started. So if Tanaka tries to use a weapon skill on him, he will have to try and take advantage of that weakness. To do that, Haruka wants to try getting himself a new skill, but that means he has to level up. Just then, Haruka notices a bunch of goblins that were attracted by the blood of the jocks, and these are pretty high level, so Haruka takes them all out for experience. However, he is still unable to level up. Haruka wishes he could go up against something stronger so he can get more experience points, and just as Haruka says this, a Goblin King shows up, so he gets ready to take it down. The Goblin King is strong and its attacks are also really fast, but Haruka is able to jump out of the way at the last second. A single strike from this thing would be fatal, and Haruka doesn't have the time to counterattack without getting hit, so he is forced to come up with a new strategy. Haruka uses his rap skill to combine a bunch of his other skills into a brand new one, and with this new skill, Haruka dashes past the Goblin King and defeats it in an instant. Haruka is really glad to see that his idea to combine different skills works out so well, but in the middle of his celebration, a terrifying presence appears behind him, so Haruka is forced to fall back and prepare for another fight. This monster is a Goblin Emperor, and it's already at level 50 while Haruka is still only level 9, so Haruka doesn't think there is any way he can beat this thing if he fights it head on. The only option is to try out his combined skill again, so Haruka activates it and charges straight at the Goblin Emperor. The second he is within range, Haruka strikes at it, but his special skills do absolutely nothing to hurt it. The Goblin Emperor gets back up as if nothing happened, and then it starts striking at Haruka with incredible speed. It is clear that the Goblin Emperor is using weapon skills since its attacks are way too powerful. So Haruka looks for an opening in the attack so he can launch a counterattack. Haruka manages to find the opening and strikes the goblin in the chest, sending it flying backwards. Haruka does a considerable amount of damage to it, but the Emperor begins healing itself. If regular attacks aren't going to get him anywhere in this battle, Haruka thinks he is going to have to make up another combined skill. But before Haruka can do that, the Goblin Emperor uses one of his weapon skills and launches powerful slashes at Haruka. Haruka barely manages to block the attack, and with all these injuries his chances of winning aren't looking good, but Haruka has to keep going if he wants to become strong enough to protect his friends. Haruka gets back up and charges at the Goblin Emperor in a desperate attempt to defeat it, and by the time morning comes, Haruka is the last one standing, and because of his efforts Haruka gained 2 levels. Now that Haruka is level 11, he heads back to his house to check out his status window. Just as Haruka expected, his new level has granted him several new skills, but Haruka is not sure if it will be enough for him to beat Tanaka in a fight. Still, with his skill he is able to attack in a split second to take advantage of the weapon skill. So Haruka just hopes things work out in his favor. Later that evening outside Haruka's house, Tanaka shows up, and Haruka has been waiting for him. Haruka remembers Tanaka being bullied by the jocks when they first got here, but it turns out he was just playing along so he could get his revenge in the end. While Tanaka and Haruka face off, the girls have just returned to Omiwi after a long day of adventuring, and as they walk back, they notice a couple of guys sitting outside the walls. They soon realize that it's the jocks, and they are glad to see them, but they are also really worried because the jocks are in pretty bad shape. Class rep remembers Haruka saying he was going to check on the jocks in his note, so she asked them if they know where Haruka is, so they tell her that Haruka is currently fighting in the forest to protect them all. Back in the forest, Tanaka is disappointed to learn that Haruka is the only one here, since Tanaka was hoping to class rep instead. He even went through all the trouble of getting the delinquents to cause trouble and split up the class. Haruka realizes Tanaka has been behind everything so far, and Tanaka intends to kill as many people as it takes to get what he wants. Still, Tanaka doesn't see Haruka as much of a threat, so Tanaka decides to leave the loser alone and go looking for class rep so he can steal her hijack skill. However, even if Haruka doesn't particularly like his classmates, he still wants to protect them, so Haruka holds his staff up to Tanaka's neck and says, "You shall not pass." Tanaka is annoyed that a nobody like Haruka is standing in his way, so Tanaka is more than willing to kill him if Haruka wants to ruin his plans. So now what will happen next? Subscribe to our channel to find out what will happen next. So friends, if you liked our recap video, then please like and share this video, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.